wants to do a test on that.
Well, Green Gully have succeeded so far in turning their fortunes from last year, and games like tonight are the ones that you've got to bed down to separate yourselves from the middle of the pack and stay near the top. Kingston City's season hasn't really gone to plan so far, but this is a side capable of flicking the switch and turning a campaign on its head, just like they did last year. We're only in round 9 though, plenty of the season still to go. This is NPL Victoria round number 9. Monday night football here at the Grange Reserve. Jordan Canellis with you, and alongside me for tonight's call across the streaming platforms of Facebook and YouTube is Demir Kulash. Hello, Demir.
Hello, Jordan. Pleasure to be here, and I believe tonight is the first. Haven't called a game with you yet. It's going to be a pleasure to do so because you have come well prepared.
Yes. Yeah, I do my research, albeit very hurriedly this afternoon, but yeah, I've come in with the team sheet anyway, and team sheets is what we'll have a look at. Green Gully, firstly, the away side, they come in unchanged. So Stephen Downs pretty satisfied with how things are going. Not many big names out. Nick Kalmar comes up to the bench tonight.
Yeah, after a 4-0, comprehensive 4-0 home victory against a team like Pascoe, you can't imagine it'd be too many changes. Obviously, it's good for them to have an experienced campaigner like Nick Kalmar on the bench. He makes his first appearance on the Green Gully team sheet since being sent off in that round 4 defeat at home to Dandenong City. But overall, I think it's been quite a solid bounce back by Green Gully after such a tumultuous season last year. The caretaker, Stephen Downs, who presided over their miraculous survival in that promotion-relegation playoff against Moreland City, got the job on a full-time basis, and I think he's done well. And I think one of the reasons why he's done well has been probably the signing of the season, Alex Salmon, who has 10 goals in 8 games. So he'll be definitely one that Kingston will look to keep quiet tonight if they're to have any chance of securing a precious 3 points.
Coming off a hat-trick last week as well against Paco is Alex Salmon, so in hot form at the moment. Green Gully out into position. Kingston City, we await the home team. A change in goals tonight, which is probably the biggest talking point of the starting 11 amongst a few. But Stephen Hatzikortis is in for Nathan Cavalier, who starts on the bench.
Yeah, and the official explanation that we've gotten for that one is that Cavalier has been rested, so it's a good opportunity for Stephen Hatzikortis, the youngster who we saw a bit of last year since when he joined Kingston City initially from Mel Victory youth team. He took over the number 1 jersey by displacing Kyle Kennedy for a short while before Cavalieri's mid-season signing, so he'll be eager to impress tonight.
So Kingston City coming in 13th on the table, just the 1 win from their 8 games, 2 draws and 5 losses. Their 1 win and one of their 2 draws have come at home, so they've done a little bit better at the Grange. Green Gully in 8th position right now on the table. That is at this stage of round number 9. 4 wins, a draw and 3 losses with 2 away wins so far this season. So all players out into position. We'll touch on the starting 11s in just a second, but Green Gully getting us underway and scoring to the right of screen, streaming on Facebook and YouTube tonight as Green Gully look to go down the right to begin with. Cleared away by Bennett. Here's Bayou, who's retained his spot on a wing for Green Gully. So it's Jared Tyson in goals for the away side, Walker, Jones, Hall and Lampard across the back 4. Here is Lampard down that far sideline. Out of play it goes. Boonis, Purcell in midfield. Davies just ahead of them with Fletcher and Bayou on the flanks and Alex Salmon up front. Spinella, Muscat, Kalmar, Tutsides and Kamara on the bench for Green Gully. And for Kingston, Hatzikortis in goals. Bennett, Jovanovic, Love and Fetahagic across the back 4. Iancello and Suleimani in midfield. Keanu Moore is there as well, with Iaconis, Caniglia and Legrand up front. Here's Green Gully attacking. Salmon, heavy touch. Works the cross back in. No one at the back post. Boonis ghosts in, takes the shots. And it's an early opener for Green Gully. It was Boonis who came in at the back post. He took a touch and fired it in on his left. And that is as early a goal as they've scored this season, Green Gully, 1-0.
Yeah, just over 60 seconds gone on the clock and Green Gully strike first. It's a fantastic start for them. Jonathan Boonis with his first campaign, but awful start to the game for Kingston City, who couldn't have had a worse start to this game, really. It's a must-win game for them if they want to climb out of the automatic relegation zone. Green Gully, on the other hand, are looking to get back into the top 6, and they've made an excellent start to proceedings.
Just the second minute of this encounter. And a goal for Gully. Kingston look to fire themselves down this left sideline. Iakonis. Ball stripped away. Here's Bayou. Salmon held it up and played it into Bayou. He's going on a good run. Managed to keep it in for just a yard extra and then finally kicked out of play by Fetahagic.
It's interesting, Bunis is the goal scorer tonight. Now, when he left Northcote City upon their relegation from the top flight in 2016 and joined Gully, I understand that Nick Tolios was very keen to actually get him down to the Grange Reserve, but that move fell through and he opted for Green Gully. And he's been, I guess, a figure of stability at the club. They've had an extensive turnover over the last few seasons, particularly after Arthur Papas has left, who recruited much of their squads over the last few campaigns. So Bunis, good to see him in the Gully start 11 and on form.
Neat interplay there from Moore and Iakonis, but nothing to show from it in the final third. Hatzakortis has a touch. Off the instep of Bennett, out for a throw on that far sideline. Here's Cooper Legrand drifting wide. Ball's taken away from him by Lampard. Jonathan Barrero, our referee tonight. He's officiated over 30 A-League games. Here you go, Kingston in midfield. Suleimani back to Love. Heavy ball all the way across to the left side. Is that Erhan Yalaz who's on the field? Is he a late inclusion, I believe?
I think he's come in for, is it Zwed?
Caniglia.
Caniglia, yeah.
He wasn't in the names 11, but he's come off as a late change.
And Kingston also missing Chris Irwin tonight, who I think is a big loss. Of course, box-to-box midfielder that can also play out wide on the flanks, who's got plenty of energy, speed and technique to his game. Scored the opener against Oakley about 6 weeks ago. He is on holiday in America. In fact, I think he was at a Boston Celtics playoff game earlier today, so I'm sure he's having fun.
Long ball forwards. It's Salmon trying to run onto it, but Jovanovic keeps him away, hooks it out of play. Here's Davies. Now Daniel Jones on the ball. Across to Jordan Hall. And now Jeremy Walker. Here's Bayou, the young winger. Tries to create something down the right sideline and gets a shove in the side from Fetahagic. He's trying to impose his physicality on the youngster in the early stages.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Bayou retaining his spot in the starting 11, which is fair play to him because they have T-Boy Kamara back in the fold. He actually replaced Bayou in the second half last week and contributed to one of Salmon's goals or played a part in it. So he's definitely a line wire that they have on the bench up their sleeves as Davies prepares to take this free kick.
Sent in by Davies. It's sharp to the top of the box. Cleared away. And Fetahagic ran after Yalaz ran after it. Tried to punt it up the line. Gully throw. Davies to Bunis, who wants to loft it into the back post, and he does, but it's just a few yards further ahead of Fletcher. And out for a goal kick. Kingston City wanting to break a streak of 3 losses in a row tonight. Heidelberg United the last one, 3-2 result last week, high scoring game. Headed on by Yalaz. Walker finds Bayou. And now it's Hall. Jared Tyson gets a first touch tonight. Green Gully again looking to go down the sidelines through Lampard. And offside called from the assistant referee on the near side. Long ball into that final third. Not working out.
Of course, Monday night football, always a good occasion here at the Grange Reserve, and I think it does wonders for Kingston's attendances because it is unique, particularly now that Bulleen have been relegated from the top flight. That they are the only team in the top flight that does play their home games on a Monday night, and particularly down here in the southeast when you're not competing with anything else really, it definitely drives that attendance up. For a team that probably has, if I'm, no disrespect to them, but one of the smaller fan bases in the top flight. But they've definitely developed, you could say, a cult following since their promotion into the NPL, with a lot of young players who have won plenty of plaudits in that time.
Deep ball out to the left for Fletcher, who's got Bennett trying to close him down on that far side, and he continues to run on. Good defending from Iancello as well through midfield.
Yeah, Bennett scored a really good goal last week in that 3-2 defeat to Heidelberg, which, yes, was another defeat for Kingston City, but ultimately not a lot of teams can actually go to Olympic Village, particularly teams that are on the wrong side of the ladder, and actually give Heidelberg a contest, and Kingston certainly did that last week. Maybe on another night they could have gotten something out of it, but it wasn't to be.
What has been your impression generally with Kingston City this season? Not so flash when you look at their position on the table, but they have been in a few games here and there, just not getting the results.
Well, unlike tonight, they've generally been good starters in a lot of their games, particularly at home. They've taken early leads against the likes of Oakley, South Melbourne and Altona, and they've had mixed fortunes in all those games because they've ended up with a win against South Melbourne, albeit with 10 men. Kingston, that was on that evening with Cornelia's send-off in the 60th minute. They struggled to finish the game off against Oakley and ended up drawing that one after a late Marcus Demanche goal gave the Pointless Cannons at that stage a point, and they lost 2-1 to Altona City after taking an early lead, having Yala sent off early in the second half following a second booking, and then really the numerical disadvantage hurt them in the end. And one of the other games that I did call was their game against Sandong Thunder, which was a funny old game where the Thunder won 3-1, but Kingston had the majority of the chances, and they just stumbled upon a brick wall in Pierce Clark that night, who was quite dominant in goals to preserve Thunder the 3 points. But overall, I think that it's been a poor start by their standards. I'm sure Nick Tolius would have preferred his side to be competing for the 6 rather than struggling at the lower echelons of the table.
They went undefeated in their last 7 games last season. Do they have, again, the ability to try and really turn this season on its head at around the halfway mark? Is this a team that you can see competing? It's a much tighter, much more competitive top flight, I feel, this season.
Well, they've been unlucky with, injuries for a lot of this campaign. They've had key personnel, particularly at the back out. I mean, we still haven't seen the return of their usual left back, Nathan Tidmarsh, since going down in round 1 against Port Melbourne. Jovanovic and Faisal Sakizada have had the injury problems. Of course, Sakizada still isn't back. Ryan Love has only recently returned into the fold. Aydin Fethagic has been deputising our left back in Tidmarsh's absence. And that's really hurt them, as well as up front. I think they're too reliant on Damien Iconis. It's up to the likes of Cooper Legrand, Max Etheridge to really lift that attacking burden away from Iconis, who I think has been one of their better performers as usual.
Fethagic going on here with a nice run. Tries to find a teammate, and the shot is fired away by Yalaz, but straight into the arms of Jared Tyson, who drops to his left and makes the save. You mentioned Fethagic there, we just saw him. He's deputising for Tidmarsh at left back, but has he been one of the better performers this season? Has he sort of done a job well enough in that position?
I think he has. He's a As you can see, he's a big body to have in defence. It helps that he's a left footer as well, and he's generally been, I think, one of their better performers alongside the likes of Iaconis. I know Cavalieri's last few games haven't been the best, but he was definitely one of their bright sparks early on. But it's just about getting consistency, taking their chances, and really being tighter defensively, which they haven't been on a number of occasions, including inside those opening 60 few seconds that we saw when Boonis was able to get a free shot in the box and give Gully the early lead as they prepare to take this corner through Jay Davies.
Mishap in defence there from Kingston. Alex Salmon was trying to charge through. Corner, as you said, on that far side. Jonathan Boonis, the goal scorer in the second minute this evening. Green Gully with that early advantage. Kingston City haven't been too despondent, haven't looked that way since that goal. They've had a few forays into the final third. Davies whips in the corner, out to the penalty spot, punched away by Hatzikortis. It'll be marshalled down here at left back. Fetahagic hooks it up to Yalaz, who can't get away from Boonis, the sliding tackle out of play.
Yeah, one of Kingston City's first games back in the top flight in 2017 was, I believe, a round 2. I think it might have actually been their first home game, was a round 2 fixture against Green Gully, which ended up being a 3-3 draw between the two sides. And I think Jay Davies and was it Erhan Yalaz both got sent off late on.
Yalaz across the final third. Far side, Moore has to work for it, and Fletcher keeps him away. I think both games that season were 3-3 draws in 2017 between these two teams. Long ball down that far sideline. Heavy challenge there from Fletcher, and yellow card shown immediately to the newcomer to the Green Gully side this season. Beg your pardon, it was to the Kingston City defender. So free here for Green Gully, just ahead of halfway. Defensive ball first for Jordan Hall.
I think one signing that's helped Gully, particularly at the back this season, has been the return of Daniel Jones, who of course spent a number of seasons at Green Gully Reserve, was part of their championship successes earlier on this decade. He of course spent last season at Moreland City and almost actually played his part in Gully's relegation to the second tier. It was only a matter of really seconds. Had it not been for that, Gully would have been in NPL 2 and Moreland City in NPL 1. And who knows what would have happened to Green Gully then, because they're a team that, I think it's no secret, has one of the smaller fan bases in this competition, despite their illustrious history, which contains 9 Victorian Premier League titles and was, of course, a member of the National Soccer League back in the 1980s. But they've rebuilt strongly and started at the back with the signing of Jared Tyson. Also, Daniel Jones has returned to the club. I think he's really helped Jordan Lampard, a young, promising defender in that centre-back role. I think them two have formed a good partnership. Overall, it's good to also have Jeremy Walker, one of the most consistent right-backs in the league, and another ex-Moreland City player in Jordan Lampard at left-back, who I think has been one of their more underrated players that's performing solidly as well. You know, when you look across the midfield, Boonis, Davies and Purcell are quite experienced. Not only that, you've got Kalmar to come in, and up front, I mean, Salmon has been exceptional, but Fletcher's chipped in with a few goals. Bayou's added an impact in recent weeks. Kamara, if he can stay fit, he'll definitely be an attacking spark. And also they've still got Andy Brennan, who has struggled with injury, and if he gets into top form, I think he'll also be quite dangerous in attack. The one thing I really worry for them, though, is if they do get an extensive injury crisis, is how they'll react to that.
Yeah, that's my main concern as well. You look at, if you pick a best 11 from Green Gully and then you pick your bench as well, that's pretty much it. Doesn't extend far beyond that. And most teams at least have about, 18 maybe players or 19 who could play first 11 football, but it's really just down to that main 16 for Gully, and then it's youth players after that.
Correct, but at the same time, it's a good opportunity for a lot of those youth players. I mean, we've seen a bit of Will Samus. Bayou's come into the starting 11 in recent weeks. They've also got, I think, the 20s captain, Jack Kotsanis, to also come in, and the boy who's on the bench tonight, Michael
Tutsidis.
Yeah. So, essentially, it's a good opportunity for a lot of those young boys to actually make a name for themselves in the top flight of Victorian football.
Jeremy Walker's been enjoying his battle at right back against Erhan Yalaz. He's had a few neat moments in the last 2 or 3 minutes. Here's Ryan Love for Kingston City. That's a Hagic up the sideline for Yalaz. Again, Walker got his body in the way. Ball just went out of play though. That's a Hagic's throw. Across midfield from Suleimani. Out to the right now for Bennett. Skips inside. And now plays it down that right sideline. It's Iancello on the ball. Shuffles it inboard for Moore, who tries to slide it across midfield, and it's to nobody, so Bayou will pick it up, and he'll try and dart away. And now Walker marauding down the right sideline, but Bayou's ball just a bit heavy. Just to go back on Green Gully as well, and Daniel Jones, I mean, was the intention signalled by him coming back to Green Gully that they needed to reinforce that defence? Their goal against Tally, we'll stay with the play for a second here, that's a risky header backwards from Hall, but just had enough beef on it to get it back to Jared Tyson. But Green Gully, for a relegation team, I don't think their goal against Tally last season, their defence statistically probably wasn't that dire, but obviously bad enough that they were in the relegation zone.
Yeah, and it was interesting because they initially signed Will Abbott from Bulleen, and it was only late in the window that emerged that Abbott had in fact gone to Moreland City and that they'd re-signed Daniel Jones after a 1-year hiatus at Campbell Reserve. Look, it wasn't too bad, but I guess last year one of the big problems for Green Gully was the expectations. At the start of the year, I think most people had him as a top 6 certainty, maybe even a dark horse to challenge for league honours. And after a good start, they certainly fell away. I mean, it would have been interesting to see how someone like Alex Cornelia performed against his old club, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately, because he's a player that left the sinking ship that was Green Gully midway through last season and went over to Kingston, who at the time were in relegation danger themselves, and him alongside Feta Hagic, I think, and Cavalieri proved to be 3 solid mid-season acquisitions that ultimately got Gully out of that relegation scrap heap and almost mounted a late season surge into the top 6, because I think in the end they finished 7th, wasn't it?
They did, yeah. Only 2 points outside.
It was just a case of being a game too late, really.
Yeah. Kingston City trying to show some fight here. Neither side really able to enter the other's 18-yard area since the goal. It's been 1 or 2 moments.
Yeah, it's been a bit flat. One thing I wanted to ask you about, were you a bit surprised to see Gully go into the market and get a new goalkeeper in Jared Tyson when they've got, a quality young shot stopper in Lucas Spinella on their books, who not too long ago was on the books of Melbourne Victory, a bit like Hatzi Cortes was in their youth team and was actually their number 1 youth team goalkeeper. I think he even got a few games on the bench, senior team bench, towards the back end of the 2014-15 season when Nathan Coe went down through injury.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Spinella obviously has that pedigree of being on an A-League youth team, so you'd imagine just sort of by that merit that he'd get a regular-ish spot, I suppose. I mean, nothing's a guarantee really in football, but I think so. But at the same time, if you've got Jared Tyson there, which one would you take? I suppose if Jared Tyson's available, and or if he says he wants to come down, and you've got the ability to sign him, do you go with him, who is a somewhat established goalkeeper from, I think he was in New South Wales, or do you go with Spinella? It's sort of that conundrum. And Spinella in goals last season in a disappointing season, a failure of a year, you'd have to say, for Green Gully. You probably throw your weight around the transfer market and get a new shot stopper.
Look, I think the one thing that probably counts in Spinella's favour in terms of him remaining at the club is that he's still a young goalkeeper. Not only has he got the ability to, learn and improve, but he also wouldn't, take up too much in the player points cap. And I think if you do have two goalkeepers, that could essentially be your number one goalkeeper. As long as one of those is quite young and isn't a burden in the player points cap, I think that you'd take him. I know a few years ago Bentley Green's a bit of a different situation, given that at that stage Ryan Scott wasn't established, but they had him deputising for Alistair Bray. It's interesting that South Melbourne this year do have Nikola Doganovic as their number one, with Alistair Bray returning to full fitness.
Ball into the 18-yard box. Bayou on the turn, makes the shot happen, but it's off a deflection. Still alive here just for Fletcher, who gets underneath it. Dangerous moment for Kingston City in their back half, and that was a moment for Gully.
Yeah, it's a fantastic turn from Bayou, and if he had gotten better connection on that and actually managed to direct it away from the defender, because it ultimately hit the Kingston man and took power off the shot and took the direction off there, I think it would have definitely troubled Hatzikurtis, and it would have been a brilliant goal, because that turn there was splendid by the youngster and oozes a lot of confidence when you do things like that, but just didn't have the finished product.
Looking pretty comfortable in the starting 11 at Isu Bayou. Throw for Fetahagic. Legrand tried to let it bounce through to him and cleared away by Jones coming in. Back to Tyson. Jeremy Walker now for Green Gully. That ball forward really to nobody. Jovanovic. Skipping forward, trying to play a sharp ball into Suleimani. It bounces off of his shins a bit unkindly and allows Green Gully back in possession. Long ball from defence, trying to exploit Kingston City and get Bayou into space, and he retrieves it well on the right sideline. He'll try and skip past his defender Fetahagic. Onto the left, plays the ball in and cleared away by a diving Jovanovic, with Green Gully forwards lurking.
Yeah, you can't take too many chances there if you're the Kingston City defence, and Jovanovic did well to clear that out for a corner kick, but it's another set-piece opportunity for Green Gully, and they've gotten their two centre-halves in the box, and here's where they can really hurt Kingston.
Davies' corner is punched low across the area, and the shot comes in. It's deflected away. Back out into midfield. Green Gully will try and reload by going backwards first through Walker, who turns nicely away from an oncoming Erhan Yalaz. And momentum from the corner lost. They'll try and restart again in midfield. They've given it away. Suleimani tried to dart off with it. Jonathan Barrero is going to blow the whistle and call it back. Here's Salmon. And now Davies. Lampard making the run. Still going Lampard all the way to the byline and out of play. He's been buffeted out.
Gully just asserting, I guess, the control and dominance that they have over Kingston in this game. Disappointing start for Kingston, given how well that they've started a number of games this campaign, and I think that's really troubling thing for Nick Tolios. Yes, he does have a few key players, the likes of Sakizada, Irwin, Cavalieri, Canilia, out tonight. It's still not a good sign when the opposition comes to your home ground and exerts a lot of dominance over you early on.
Green Gully again there trying to find that out ball down the left via Lampard. So almost half an hour gone here at the Grange Reserve. Green Gully with that 1-0 advantage thanks to Jonathan Boonus's goal just over a minute into the contest. And despite, without looking at the scoreboard, I suppose, Demir, would you say Green Gully have easily the momentum in this match?
Yeah, they've just controlled proceedings up to a point that's made it very difficult for Kingston to muster up anything going forward.
Heavy touch from Hatzikortis. Does clear it down the field. Walker's header. Yalaz skips past Walker, but there's coverage there from Davies. And now Bayou plays it through to Salmon with a neat 1-2. Tried to get on the end of it again, Bayou. For the Hagic. Back to Hatzikortis and cleared away.
How do you think he'd be feeling? Because, I mean, as a predominantly second-choice goalkeeper, you wait so long for your opportunity. I imagine he would have been told earlier on that he is starting tonight. He would have been buzzing throughout the day, really looking forward to it. And within a minute, his team go down 1-0. I know he couldn't really do too much about it, but it must be a real sort of shot back down to earth moment for him.
Yeah, I can't imagine he'd be feeling great. That's a quarters. Just the early goal, and as you said, yeah, it hasn't started a game this season, I believe. Cavalier's been the number one from round one, and yeah, to concede a goal early on, that's going to hurt your confidence to start off with. But I suppose we'll see what his resolve is like as this match goes on. And the response is important as well. Another long ball from midfield. Again, targeting Bayou wide on the right. Tries to get the better of Feta Hagic and then attempted to lay it off for Walker, who was yards behind. Just a bit too much there. Wasn't quite aware of his surroundings, Bayou, on that occasion. Here's Iaconis. Across now to Bennett. Legrand left it. Iaconis plays it back through to Legrand, edge of the box. Iaconis again. Neat little ball inside the 18-yard area. And it's safely taken up by Tyson. But that's probably the first time we've seen Kingston City this evening try to really pass it around the 18-yard area and play it through with intricate movement.
Now, as we always are, Jordan, we are live and interactive tonight, so keep your comments coming in regarding this game. Tell us what you think. Have Gully been deserving for their lead? Should they maybe have had another one? What do you make of Kingston's start to the contest?
NPL Victoria streaming live on Facebook and YouTube throughout this 2019 season. Round number 9 tonight. Finishing off round number 9 of NPL football.
What has stood out for you, Jordan, from the weekend of football?
Had that Heidelberg-Bentley game yesterday, or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That's I suppose, a telling fixture there. And I was looking at the ladder today. Oh, quick shot in there from Legrand, but always into the hands of Tyson. I mean, the one standout thing just for the season on the whole is Avondale. I mean, they are so far ahead of the rest of the competition. We're only 9 rounds in, but is it theirs to lose at this stage, or is there still too much football to go?
I still think there's too much football to go. From memory, they haven't yet played Heidelberg, and they've got a few fixtures to come, which are going to be tough.
Ball played through. Walker tries to lift it over. Hatzikortis, but not enough power on it from Walker, who slid in behind the defence. Hatzikortis retreated back and took the catch.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they also haven't played Bentley, have they? I think both those fixtures and also a game against Altona Magic will come in the next few weeks. So they'll be stern tests for an Avondale team that has been cruising so far this campaign, and they were flying in on Saturday afternoon, as they have been for much of this season. 6-2 win over Dandenong Thunder, and braces to Liam Boland, Stefan Zinni and Stefan Valentini. Definitely scoring goals for fun, and it's a case of really those starters impressing throughout that has made it so difficult for someone like even Joey Katabian, who we all know how prolific he's been. He's been restricted to a bench role this season. I mean, Yusuf Ahmed was another player that I was looking forward to seeing back in the top flight of Victorian football after a 3-year absence with the Melbourne City youth team after starting out so well at Dandenong Thunder as an 18-year-old. And but ultimately, really, Liam Boland has been incredible. 12 goals in 9 games. He's retaken the lead outright over Alex Salmon in the Gold Boot standings. And Stefan Zinni, what a start to the campaign. He's had 6 goals, 3 assists. And, I mean, is he one player that potentially might be looking over his shoulder for a potential, A-League spot, maybe with Western United coming in? I know that they've already signed Valentino Uwal, who isn't a similar sort of player to Zinni, given his position and also his qualities.
Well, you're right. I was going to say, I mean, if Valentino Uwal has been snapped up by Western United, and obviously before we go any further, there's that Johnny A link. That's obviously going to be a big help to Uwal, but I mean, this season, both Valentino Uwal and Stefan Zinni, you'd say, are in the mix for that gold medal. So if Uwal is right up there and Zinni's playing just as well, by that you'd go, well, yeah, of course Zinni would be surely or being looked at by A-League clubs. And it wasn't that long ago he was on an A-League club. It was Western Sydney Wanderers, 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, I think actually...
Well, it might have been last season.
2017-18, back end of the last season. And look, he had also a bit of a...
flying shot there coming in from Simo Jovanovic, who got forward. In fact, it was Keanu Moore, I believe.
Yeah. He has been on the books of A-League clubs in the past, as you mentioned. Brief spell with the Western Sydney Wanderers. Also, first emerged in the A-League with Melbourne City in the 2016-17 season from memory. Or it might have actually been season 4. Can't exactly remember. But I
think it might have been the season before. Did he come through with Matt Miller at the same time?
Yes, him, Matt Miller, Wade Decker, I think Hernan Espandola were all getting... first team game time at the same point. But overall, I think one thing that might count in his favour, you mentioned the JL link with the UL signing. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Andrew Zinni, his father and ex-Socceroo, might have been one of the people behind the successful Western United bid. So, something like that might help. But also, I mean... we haven't really seen Zinni emerge as the standout winger of the competition in the last few weeks, particularly because someone like Uwal has actually been sidelined by injury. I think he only returned to the starting 11 in that 2-0 defeat to Heidelberg United, which was a tough game for the Greens. I think always a visit to Olympic Village for any team is going to be a tough one, and definitely proved to be the case. Despite Harry Noon sending off in the 50th minute, Bentley somewhat depleted with the loss of Fertel in the 7th minute.
Flag's gone up on the near side. Has it? Play's allowed on, and Fletcher's going on a run, and he's put the ball in the back of the net. Well, the sideline referee had his line up for an offside, but I think the central referee must have waved it away, and so Green Gully have their second goal of the evening.
Yeah, plays stop still for a moment there, as a number of Kingston players waited for the referee to blow his whistle to signal offside. But I think what Jonathan Brero might be saying is that the touch might have come off a Kingston City player and hence wasn't an offside. The assistant here did raise up his flag. He probably didn't have the best of views as to who actually played that ball in, as Kingston continued their protestations with Jovanovic and Ian Challo expressing their point of view to referee Jonathan Barrero. But for the moment, it's Green Gully 2, Kingston City 0.
How long can a referee wait before he disallows a goal? I'll try and have a look at the replays here in our little commentary box. You can too on Facebook and YouTube. And that is a head scratcher, but for the moment, Green Gully have their 2-0 advantage. Play restarts again, so that'll stand. Now you'd imagine Kingston might have a bit of anger in their step now as Yalaz tries to break through the double team from Walker and Davies. It was Fletcher with the finish.
I'm going to be honest with you, I saw no touch of a Kingston City player. I could be wrong, but based on that replay, I didn't see a Kingston City player divert the ball into the path of the Green Gully man. And if that's the case, I mean, it's a big call by referee Jonathan Barrero because, I mean, his assistant is in a better position to make that call.
There was a Kingston player that sort of dived for it, but yeah, I don't think there was a touch from him. Was there a slight touch?
There might have been a slight touch, but again, you still favour the assistant to be in a better position to make a call rather than the referee unless the assistant says, you know what, that touch that I thought came off a Green Gully player, if it did come off a Kingston City player, then it is the correct call. You're in a better position to make that call. But if we're talking about the ball that was played over to the Green Gully attacker from inside Gully's own half, and if the Gully attacker was in an offside position at that point, then it's an offside. The referee should follow his assistant's lead, but it wasn't the case there, and Kingston City are poorer for it. Falling behind 2-0 here.
Fetterhagic, top of the area, Legrand. Yakonis comes around, taken off him by Boonis. Salmon dropping in, tries to pierce it through the defence for Fletcher, who was moving inwards. Leave your comments on Facebook as well. What did you think of the call? Matthew Fletcher's 4th goal of the season. Jonathan Boonis recorded his first for 2019 with his strike in the 2nd minute of this game. Salmon, ball just stayed in. Long pass down to the sideline, not well dealt with there by Suleimani getting back. He has to go around the second time and does better with the second effort and wins himself and his team a foul. Fetterhagic. Little skip step past Bayou. And now Moore. Kingston City captain Simo Jovanovic. High ball out to the near side. Didn't work out for Yalaz. It was too easy for Walker. Still comes down to Yalaz, and Walker just leaves the shoulder in. Kingston City wanting to pass this into the final third instead of taking that long free kick. Here's Iancello. Chested down, ball given away. Booness to Fletcher. And now Jones runs on. Daniel Jones. Back to Booness. And now it's Fletcher. Tries to scamper forwards. Bayou's floated across to the left side of the field. Neatly done. Steps away kindly. And his ball inside the 18-yard box. Not great for Walker, who was making the run. And now Salmon turns towards goal. Walker is galloping into the right channel. Plays it back to Salmon. Walker again gets around his defenders. He tries to continue on with it. Hatzakortis came diving out, and Kingston City just get away with that one there. Hatzakortis quick off his near post.
Yeah, just a bit of confusion in the Kingston City defence, and we do have a few comments coming in. Emra Yalaz saying getting robbed again. Giordano reckons it was definitely offside. Lee's four officials and still can't get it right. Well, to those of you watching at home, you're in a better, I guess, position to... You've got more scope to rewind that one and replay it up again. Let us know what the official verdict is, because it definitely looked like a bit of a unclear one as to who got that final touch.
That was Jonathan Booness there trying to swivel around on the edge of the box. Roulette and shot didn't work out for the defensive midfielder. First half winding down to a close. 2-0 for Green Gully. Booness and Fletcher the scorers. Fetahagic up on the near sideline. Now Yalaz. Couldn't emulate Booness's roulette. Didn't get around Walker, who has quite comfortably won the battle at right back for him. Long ball forward. Jovanovic got back quickly. Up to halfway. Legrand goes up in the air. Went whizzing past his bush of hair. He'll get it back, though, from Iaconis, who was dropping in. Now Legrand. He'll try and hurry forward. Ball played out to the right. And it's going to be brought back here for a foul in midfield. Jonathan Barrero deeming Kingston didn't have an advantage with that pass. So maybe a final chance here for the home side to launch something towards goal and maybe pinch one back before the halftime break. Initially, by the way they were setting up, didn't look like they wanted to play the long ball in, but they will now with defenders getting forward. Bennett stands over it. Keen free kick take out to the back post, and Jovanovic was there, but it went past his foot. Didn't quite measure that one right. Mistimed it and out of play.
A centre-back's finish from Jovanovic, who that was probably Kingston's best opportunity of this half, if I'm not corrected on that one. I think just came at him a bit too fast. Might not have had ample opportunity to position himself and get the technique right. I can imagine that Nick Tolles would have preferred to have seen someone like Damien Iconis or Cooper Legrand being in that position. But yeah, it's been a very flat first half from Kingston City. It's not the first time that they've going into a halftime break down. They did go 3-1 down at home to Danong Funda in round 2. So they'll definitely have plenty of work to do to get themselves back into the contest. And I just do wonder, given the absentees that they do have tonight, whether the likelihood of such a comeback is reduced. You know, particularly guys like Cornelia, Chris Irwin, that can definitely turn a game. Also Muad Sued as well.
Bayou won out that challenge. A mistake there from Fetahagic. Salmon's shot deflected away. Falls to Boonus. Spreads it out to the far side now. Fletcher. Not a nice ball from Fletcher. It's Iaconis. Purcell wins it back in midfield. Now Salmon. Purcell runs on. He was held back by Keanu Moore, and that's a pretty rudimentary foul and yellow card given out by Jonathan Barrero. And so now in stoppage time, Green Gully have a chance. Suleimani, beg your pardon, with the yellow card. So free kick taken short here by Gully out to the far sideline. They might just waste a few seconds with Davies. Now Salmon. Boonus to the byline, steps back inside on Suleimani, takes the shot to the back post, and it's been turned in by Kingston City. An own goal there, and it's Jonathan Boonus who set it all up. There's a bit of a skirmish behind the play, and it's 3-0 for Green Gully.
Yeah, that skirmish there between Jordan Hall and Aydin Fetahagic doesn't seem to be all too much with it, but Fetahagic is carded, and Jonathan Boonus, I'm sure he'll claim that one. I'm not sure if it will ultimately go down as his goal or an own goal, but I guess it completes a nightmare first half for Kingston City and Nick Tolios, who will have a lot of soul-searching, him and his coaching staff, in that halftime interval, which Jonathan Barrero has just blown for.
So that is the first half here at the Grange Reserve, and Green Gully go in with a 3-0 lead at the break. And before we take a break of our own, Demir Kulash, your thoughts from the first half? It was, by the end of it all, pretty one-sided.
It was. The moment of contention, of course, is that second goal by Green Gully, and Nick Tolios is filthy, and he's definitely telling Jonathan Barrero and his officiating team all about it just there. I think time seemed to stand still as the assistant raised up the flag for an offside, which ultimately wasn't paid. I guess it's that old adage, play to the whistle, you got to do that, and Kingston City didn't. They got punished there. Gully dominant in that first half. It's been, I think, the flattest half of football that I've seen from Kingston during the 2 and a bit years that they've been in the top flight, and there's definitely a lot of soul-searching to do in that dressing room at halftime, because that's a very poor display. It hasn't been helped by a number of factors. Of course, we'd love to see a replay, and I'm sure we will over the next 15 minutes of that second goal, but all in all, a really disappointing first half from Kingston City. But got to give credit to Green Gully. Don't see a lot of away teams going away from home and putting in such a dominant first half display, but all credit to him. I think Jonathan Boonus will take the plaudits for 2 goals. Matthew Fletcher with his strikers finish, and Alex Salmon hasn't been as prolific as he has been in recent weeks, but I think him and Bayou have combined well.
So half-time here at the Grange Reserve. It was Erhan Yalaz with the own goal right on half-time after Boonus got inside the 18-yard box and fired it across the goal line. He scored the first one, Jonathan Boonus, back in the second minute. Matthew Fletcher, a bit controversially with that no offside call given after the lino put the flag up in the 37th, and then Yalaz, as I said, at the break. So half-time here on NPL Victoria, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Round number 9 of NPL. We'll take a break and we'll come back with the second half in just a few minutes. Round 9 of NPL Victoria. Second half underway here at the Grange Reserve this Monday night. Kingston City and Green Gully, your match to finish off this weekend before we head into a bit of a break for Easter coming up next weekend. Jordan Canellis with you, Demir Kulash alongside me. And it's Green Gully with a very commanding 3-0 lead as we get this game back underway. And there was a change at halftime as well, with Nathan Tidmarsh making his return in place of Ryan Love, who's gone off. Demir Kulash, head of the second half. What are you expecting here?
A much improved Kingston City, no less, given that, you know, 3-0 down at halftime in a home game that you're not only must win, but I think there's an expectation that Kingston, if they are to avoid, you know, being in that relegation dogfight, need to win games at home against teams like Green Gully. They couldn't have gotten off to the worst start, conceding that early goal in the second minute to Boonis. And also, I mean, it was contentious, that second goal, but you've just got to play to the whistle for Fletcher, of course, the goal scorer. And, I mean, that goal at the on the stroke of half-time by Boonis really kills you, because, I mean, 2-0's already a mountain to climb. 3-0 makes it almost impossible. So I think they need to get a goal in early, inside the first 15 or so minutes, if they're going to make a game of this.
They've got a corner early on, Kingston. It's to the front post. Jovanovic the target, nodded up and away, and then hooked further clear just behind the halfway line. Davies are going to launch this one. It's going to go way out to the right, nowhere close. Stephen had to caught us a long way out of his box, but that's not unusual for a goalkeeper when there's a corner at the other end, and nothing from that.
I think the third one was ultimately given as a Erhan Yalaz own goal.
Yep.
But it'll be interesting to see if it gets corrected, because I think there was one last week in a game between Dandenong Thunder and Port Melbourne, which was given to, from memory, Konagaya, that Mehmedi might have bundled into the back of the net. That was goal bound, so it's all really a question of whether the shot by Boonis was going goalwards. In any case, welcome return for Nathan Tidmarsh into the Green Gully lineup. Of course, I think he got injured early on in that round 1 fixture against Port Melbourne, and he hasn't been seen since. I'm sure he would have liked to have returned in better circumstances, but it wasn't to be, and at least he'd be relishing the opportunity to be back on the park.
Tidmarsh's first touch there, not the best, but he did well to hold up Salmon, and it's allowed Kingston City back on the ball in their own half, and now they'll try and stride forward. Across halfway, Legrand is there. It was Iancello moving forward as well. It spits out to Bayou. Back into the middle of the park now, Jones. Came charging through, trying to chop people down as he came up. Suleimani lifts it into the 18-yard area. Iakonis trying to run onto it. Tyson was out quickly off his line. And free kick given here against Green Gully.
I can't imagine that Kingston City halftime dressing room would have been a happy place given the performance they dished up in that first half. As I said, in the 2 and a bit years that Kingston City have been in the top flight, have not seen a poorer half of football from them, and Nick Tolios would definitely have been filthy with the effort on display. I mean, to go down 3-0 in one half is bad enough. To do it at home against Green Gully, no disrespect to them, it's not like they're in Avondale or a Heidelberg, is I think a tad too disappointing. But all credit to Green Gully for asserting their dominance over this fixture.
Lampard here on the left for Gully. Fletcher running through, gets on the end of it. Too many Kingston City defenders just getting in the way before he could try and slide past them all.
Yeah, it was good persistence in the end from Lampard. I mean, the end result wasn't there because it went out for a goal kick, but he's definitely been a solid acquisition for Green Gully this term. As I mentioned in the first half, signed from Moreland City. Had previous NPL experience with the Port Melbourne Sharks in, when was it, 2017. And I believe he's another Queenslander, or if he's not a Queenslander, I think he might be from northern New South Wales, maybe Lismore. Do correct me if you do know the answer in the comment section. But in terms of standouts, who has been the standout performer in your eyes, Jordan?
I like the mainly in the first part of the first half, the game of Adisu Bayou. Didn't quite carry it all the way through. He's on the ball here, though, as he goes scurrying down that right sideline. He pulls up just on the corner of the box. Jovanovic has stolen in and won it back. And Vetahagic sees it away downfield. Bounces away out over the sideline. Bayou in the early stages of the first half in particular. I think Jeremy Walker's been just a rocket right back. It hasn't really allowed Erhan Yalaz any freedom through the flanks. And probably Fletcher, I think he's probably been one of the better players in the front half. As you said in that before we went to half time, Alex Salmon not really that lively, I suppose, in the first 45. It's been mainly Fletcher who's, for mine anyway, causing the chaos up front.
But I suppose if you're Stephen Downs and his assistant Steve Laurie, you can't say any of the 11 men on the field have been poor performance tonight. I know Salmon has been quiet given his usual standards, but they are quite lofty given what he's been able to achieve in his short time in Victorian football. But overall, I think coaches love to say win your individual battles, and I think that at the moment Green Gully is winning all 11 of them.
He's still done bits and pieces in this match, Salmon. He's mainly played with his back to goal and trying to link up with players coming past, and that's, from that perspective, that's worked, but nothing for him really going forward. Here he is, though. He brings it down with his right foot coming in. Jovanovic, always there, kicks it out of play. In the corner for Green Gully. Can't forget the efforts of Jonathan Boonis as well. Scored the first goal of the game and helped set up the second right before, or the third, I beg your pardon, right before half time. Showing he can play anywhere, really. Was at centre back last season. He's before that played as a defensive midfielder and not afraid to go up a bit higher this season. Corner comes in for Gully, headed away by Tidmarsh. It'll come down here for Boonis. He wants to send it across, but he's shanked it out of play. Purcell lays it off to the right. Walker, short ball forward for Bayou. And now Davies. Spots the run of Lampard. Neat touch from Lampard. Now Fletcher, back to Lampard, who continues on running. Kingston got in the way first in their back half. Tidmarsh was there. And then Legrand tried to flick it through for Iaconis. Wanting to keep the play moving here, Kingston City. Here's more. Iancello. Crossfield to Tidmarsh. Vetahagic has moved into the centre half position for this second half with Ryan Love coming off and Tidmarsh a specialist fullback. Kingston moving forward. Ball in, looking for Legrand. It was Daniel Jones who got his head in the way. Moore flicked it back. Davies got in there and it rolls out to Jared Tyson.
Yeah, it was a vital interception there from Daniel Jones, showing his experience to prevent Legrand from having an opportunity direct that goal. Only metres out away from the Gully shot stopper and Jared Tyson, as we see a free kick go in the favour of Kingston City as Suleimani is fouled by Matthew Fletcher, and this will be a good set piece opportunity and potentially a good chance for Kingston to get a goal back.
Ali Suleimani, highly rated youngster at Kingston City, seeing more and more senior game time now. Well and truly part of the senior setup. Bennett bents it into the back post. And Jovanovic was there and Tyson tried to cover it off at the back post and did well enough to see it out for a corner. So Kingston just trying to pile up the set pieces for the time being. Corner whipped in from the far side. The front post, Tyson got 2 fists on it. Up and away, doesn't clear the box though. So it might come back in here. Kingston on the ball through Iaconis. And now out wide. Bennett works in the cross. It was a low, hard one right into the chest of Tyson. He bowls it out quickly down the far side and now Davies can move. He's got Walker riding shotgun, but Bayou further forward. Plays it right through to Bayou, who fires it in. And that is a great goal from Adisu Bayou, who has scored his first goal of the season. He was lively in the first half, and that was a quick counter-attack, end-to-end, down the right sideline. Bayou chested it down, and you saw the finish. That was low and hard and past the goalkeeper.
What a moment for the youngster getting his first goal in the Victorian top flight. I think it's his first senior goal, so he'll definitely remember that one. And it was a fantastic finish, but Kingston caught on the break. Numbers not getting back quick enough, and ultimately they paid the price. 4-0 down now as we see another change, and I think it's going to be Green Gully with Bayou, the goal scorer, is it not, who's gone off for T-Boy Kamara. So I think that change would have been made or planned before Bayou got himself on the score sheet, but all credit to him for getting that one as Kingston's night goes from bad to worse.
4-0. Adisu Bayou has been the live wire out wide for Green Gully tonight, and he's got that goal. Hugs all round as he came off as well, Bayou. And we spoke in the first half about how really you look at the number of senior players in the senior squad for Green Gully, and it's at the start of the season was just that sort of 16, and then anything else after that, depth-wise, it was all youth players. But as you pointed out, Demir, it's a good opportunity for those youth players to step up, and some of them have this season. We've seen a bit of Billy Siamas, and now you can add Adisu Bayou to the list and know that he'll hopefully, more often than not, do a job for Green Gully. I suppose it's worked well so far for Gully. This win tonight will put them right back up into the top 6. I think they'll go to 4th or 5th, depending on goal difference. Kingston City trying to counter-attack the other way. Heavy touch from Fletcher. It's allowed Bennett to come back in, marauding inside the area. Iaconis is lurking, pinballs around for a second, and then falls out nicely to Davies, who was able to carry it out of the 18-yard box. He'll get it back from Walker.
It's a good opportunity for someone like T-Boy Kamara, who's got plenty of pace and trickery in his game to cause, well, wreak more havoc for the Kingston City defence. Of course, it's hard to believe that he's still only 22 for a player who made his A-League debut, as a 15-year-old for the Adelaide United.
Yeah.
Against, from memory, Gold Coast United back in 2011. I think he's still, to this date, the youngest player in A-League history. Of course, he's had a number of injury and health setbacks in the intervening years, but it's good to see him back at a high level of football and playing his part in this Green Gully resurgence.
He's sparked this corner here for Gully with that run towards the penalty box. Low from Davies, fired in by Salmon. It's spun up and away off the hands of Hatzakortis first up, and no rebound in from Green Gully. Seen out by Kingston City. There'll be another corner, this time near side of the field. It was Kamara on the line, actually, having a look at the replay. He was on the goal line. He denied his own man.
Commentator's curse, of course.
Yeah.
Just as we were talking him up, or I was talking him up.
Corner sent into the back post. And it was, I think, Salmon who was charging in, trying to get that header on, but it's flown past him and out the back. Now Boonis down the right sides and cleared away by Jovanovic. He's been everywhere deep in defence, as much as he can be anyway. String of corners piling up now for Green Gully. Davies in far side, this time lofts it up from this end of the ground. Fletcher was there and he was the one that touched it last. Couldn't try and wrap his neck around that one to get the shot on target. Out of play it goes. And a substitution here for Green Gully, for Kingston City first, and then Green Gully. Cooper Legrand coming off.
It's Moad Swed, the man who's come on.
And then it's going to be Jonathan Boonis who comes off here, is it? I don't think Jonathan Boonis has seen it. Jonathan Barrero's had to come over and tell him. Unless they've got the numbers around the wrong way. Timmy Purcell coming off instead.
And Kalmar's come on, has he? Yeah, I think he has.
Yep.
Well, I think this team that they've got on the park now is Green Gully's strongest 11, you could say. I'm not sure where you would put Andy Brennan in amongst that, because I think him and Kamara sort of evenly matched, although Bayou has certainly thrown his name in the hat as well, given his performances, not just tonight, but over the last few weeks. I think he's definitely been a breath of fresh air, and it's good to see. It's always good to see a young player who has emerged through, particularly the club's junior ranks, getting a shot in the senior team and really taking it.
Lampard, nice ball through. Salmon was just a little bit behind the run.
Well, I think that fourth goal pretty much means it's curtains for Kingston tonight. I know we're in round 9, so it's still about 4 more rounds to go until we hit the midway point of the season. But the transfer window will open up at that point of time. Where do you see Kingston need to make reinforcements, Jordan? Because I can't imagine they'd be too happy with their predicament at the moment and the overall performances of a number of their players.
Swed tries to play that ball through. I think probably one area that I think like to look at is striker. There really isn't that main sort of talisman up front that you can rely on for goals most weeks. I know Damien Iaconis is a great goal scorer, but he also plays a bit out wide, a little bit in behind. And there's, the guys I've got in the team at the moment are sort of youngish players, Cooper Legrand and Max Etheridge as well, who's come back this season. Probably want someone with a bit more experience up front to lead the line. That's probably the main area, and then maybe a centre mid too.
Yeah, I think definitely that centre of the park sort of is a soft core for Kingston City. They need a really good midfield enforcer that tightens the ship. And also agree with your comments regarding a number 9. I think the Max Etheridge experiment has potentially failed in terms of his return to the club. Cooper Legrand, still young, was impressive in patches last campaign. I thought he'd kick on this season, but it hasn't been the case. And yeah, just a lot of question marks regarding Kingston City this campaign that haven't been answered, and I think a bit like last season, they're going to have to go into the window and add a bit of quality. I mean, the good thing for them is that there's probably players around the league that aren't getting the game time that they probably would expect to have. They haven't hit the back of the net. 2 guys I'm thinking of, one of them, Joey Katabian. Although, at the same time, do you really want to go from being part of a all-conquering Avondale Avengers team to a relegation dogfight, and particularly if the Avengers go further in the FA Cup? Another player that hasn't had the best of seasons, that is a noted scorer at this level, is Wade Decker, who isn't having the happiest of campaigns at Oakley Cannons. Well, who is really at Oakley, given the start that they've had? I think the one shining light for them has been Joe Guest. But still a few weeks to go until the transfer window opens, of course. FA Cup week this week over the Easter break. Definitely be interesting to see if there's a few cup sets, because, if you're an NPL team, you definitely want to make your mark in the FA Cup, given the riches on offer.
Their season probably turned at around the mid-season transfer window last season as well. Kingston City, I don't think they had won a game in the first 9 or so rounds. What was it? No, it was 3-0 on 9, so 3 wins and 9 losses through the first half of the season. Then that mid-season transfer window happened, and I don't think they didn't lose a game in the final 7 or so rounds. And it was bringing in the likes of Alex Caniglia and on the field, and also Nathan Cavalier to reinforce the shot stopper position. So maybe it's a similar story again, where they can find second wind. It's going to be sort of difficult, I think, to do it 2 years in a row, but it might be a chance of happening. Corner came in, and it's a free kick here for Kingston City in their back half. But that might be something that Nick Tolios tries to bank on again, happening for 2 years in a row.
Well, the good thing for them last year was the fact that they were able to take players that weren't getting game time, that were perhaps unhappy with their predicament at their current employers at that stage. Canelia being one of them. Vet Hugic wasn't getting a lot of minutes at South Melbourne. Cavalieri wasn't inspired. Mid-season signing from Interstate. I think the departure of Carl Kennedy left a void for a number 1 shot stopper that he did fill. And it particularly was a positive for them, given that, they lost a lot of quality over the course of the campaign. Chris Irwin was restricted to a handful of appearances, as was the man who was just on the ball in Simo Jovanovic. Ryan Love also couldn't get his body right. Muadz Wed spent the entirety of last season out injured through an ACL injury, as he chases a lost cause there, really.
Another change coming up here for Kingston City. And it's going to be Erhan Yalaz to make way. And I think this is young Conte coming on, who's been started out in the youth team this season. He's been around a few different youth teams over the last 2 or 3 seasons, particularly Nunawading and I think Richmond as well. And now into the fold this time around in 2019 with Kingston.
Yeah, it's his third appearance of the season. Made his debut a couple of weeks back as a second-half substitute against Pascoe Vale. So it's good to see another youngster being given a go. And like Bayou, it's your chance to shine. You've got really nothing to lose. Your team's 4-0 down. It's a very poor predicament to be in, but if you're a young kid with really nothing to lose, go for it. As Kalmar eyes up this set-piece opportunity for Green Gully.
He won the foul. He'll send in the free kick. Ball comes in. It's a high one to the back post. That's going to loop all the way out of play. Not a good delivery by Nick Kalmar. 20 minutes to go in this encounter. It's well and truly Green Gully's tonight. 4-0. Jonathan Boonis with the opening goal. Matt Fletcher, an own goal from Erhan Yalaz, and then Adisu Bayou 15 minutes into this second half. The live wire tonight on the flanks for Green Gully. Headed back by Lampard. Now Davies. T-Boy Kamara a bit flat-footed on that far side as he waited for that ball to fly through. It was heavy anyway from Davies. Thrown in, far sideline. Coming across and covering convincingly was Hall. String of headers nodded on backwards to Fetahagic, who turns away from Salmon and back to Hatzikortis, who started in goals tonight ahead of the usual number one, Nathan Cavalier. Suleimani can't get around Kalmar. Long ball punched forward by Lampard. Fletcher being given a hard time by Suleimani, who does well all the way down to the byline.
It's definitely one of those nights where if you're a Kingston City supporter, you'd be forgiven for leaving early given the state of affairs on the field at the moment. 4-0 down. It'll take a Herculean comeback from Landnedes to get something out of this game. I think it's just about out of the question. But a bit like Dandenong City the other night, it's all about getting some pride back into that shirt, because 4-0 is just such a bad look at home when you need points. So I think it'll go down, if it stays this way, as one of Kingston City's worst defeats in the top flight.
Been conceding heavily in recent games as well. 3 goals last week against Heidelberg and then 4 the week before against Pascoe Vale. So 11 goals in the last 3 games with still 20-odd minutes or just under to run in this encounter tonight. Conte long ball backwards into midfield. Takes the sting out of that particular movement from Kingston City. They'll try again and foray down the left.
I think Green Gully are readying their third and final change with Manny Muscat about to come on. So it's pretty early for both benches to be emptied out. Haven't even hit the 75th minute mark, which is a world away from a few weeks back when Oakley played Heidelberg United, and Oakley practically introduced all 3 of their substitutes in the 90th minute plus.
Great play from Green Gully down the right side. Kamara latches onto it and coming across and covering well for Kingston City was Aidan Fetahagic. And yet another corner for Green Gully in this second half. Not before that change will be made, and Manny Muscat is the one to come on. And off in his place is Matthew Fletcher, who's been a little bit more muted in this second half, but had a very decent first half indeed.
Yeah, Muscat will come on for these final 15 plus minutes and look to impose himself on the contest. I mean, his best years are behind him, but I think the experience that he has and that he brings to that Green Gully locker room is one that many clubs around the league would be envious of. Of course, a stalwart at the Wellington Phoenix for a number of years before spending the last 2 years, seasons of his A-League career with Melbourne City, where I think he got his hands on an FA Cup winners medal.
In by Davies, front post, commanded well by Hatzikortis. Long punt all the way down the field, Lampard wheeling backwards. Suleimani's throw. One back quickly by Gully. Brunis bounces off a few in midfield, and it's one down by Conti. Back to Lampard, long ball downfield, just to clear the area. Talking about that centre mid position for Kingston City just a moment ago, Demir, would you see maybe he's played a decent game as best as you can in a 4-0 deficit tonight, but Jovanovic in defence, would you perhaps move him into centre mid? And they've got a couple of centre backs. We spoke about Faisal Sakizada, who hasn't seen any game time this season, so if you get all of them fit, you can probably make that move for Jovanovic to be the enforcer in the middle.
Well, one thing that Nick Tolios has tried regularly is actually put Faisal Sakizada into that role, and I think out of Kingston City's central defenders, he's probably best suited to play in that position. I think he's probably looked a better option for them in the number 6 role than a lot of their other alternatives. Because, I mean, you look at both Viancello, Soleimani, Keanu Moore, I don't think any of them are, naturally defensive midfielders. I think a lot of them, if not all three of them, are box-to-box midfielders that have deputised in that role. I guess it's a case of for both Viancello and Soleimani to improve their offensive credentials, because I think both have yet to find a target this campaign. I'm not even sure if they found a back in the net last season, so that's another thing that Kingston's probably lacking goals from midfield. They're a bit too reliant on Damien Iconis, as we've noted.
Ball straight in to the chest of Jared Tyson.
Yeah, that's not going to trouble the Tasmanian-born shot stopper, who of course had A-League stints with the likes of Gold Coast United and Western Sydney Wanderers. I think he might have even been at Perth Glory for a bit.
Yep.
He got his first foray in NPL Victoria last season with South Melbourne, where he was at Hellas for half a season before departing for an overseas stint in Malaysia from memory. Good shot stopper. And from all accounts, an all-round nice bloke as well. I know that when he was up in Western Sydney, he did a lot of community work in the local community. Definitely made himself a fan's favourite, even if he didn't spend a lot of time on the field. Of course, established himself as a number 1 goalkeeper in the A-League with the Gold Coast United in their final season in 2011-2012, and that's what got him that move to Western Sydney Wanderers the following season, the newly formed Wanderers, where he was deputy to Ante Trovic. But from there, I believe he got himself a Asian Champions League winners medal, which is an achievement that I imagine he'd be immensely proud of.
And making sure he rids himself of little errors like he made earlier in the year against was it Heidelberg.
Correct, it was.
Hasn't done that again.
Blamed the surface on that one, I think.
Yeah.
I think one person who came to his defence, as the Goalkeepers Union often does, is Rani Dawisha, the former Green Gully goalkeeper, who on social media posted highlights of a similar incident a few years back that he suffered at ABD Stadium against Hume City. Sure, Salmon would be keen to get himself on the score sheet. Won't want to let Liam Boland get too far ahead of him. Obviously, Kamara, another one who'd like to have his first goal in Gully colours.
Long ball forward from Jones.
Vunis maybe in his head might be thinking that he's on a hat-trick. Not sure if the referee credited him with that third goal, but if he has, it's a good time to get one. For a player who, from memory, commenced his career as a centre forward, spent time in the Melbourne Heart youth system where he was deployed as a number 9. I think his build to the onlooker would definitely suggest that he is a centre forward, but I think he's quite competent in the centre of midfield, particularly in an attacking midfield role.
Could sort of play everywhere. He played centre back last season. He's generally been a defensive midfielder from at least 2 seasons ago, but yeah, has surprisingly to me anyway, been, you know, given the attacking players that they've got in their team, Green Gully does like to get forward quite a bit, Jonathan Vunis.
Maybe it's a case of one of those instances where, you know, you have a player who's versatile in a number of positions, does the job, but perhaps doesn't have a standout position. You know,
yeah.
I'll look back to someone from a team that I support in Manchester United, Phil Jones, commenced his career where he's deployed at both, you know, centre-back, right-back, also played as a defensive midfielder, and perhaps hasn't continued on with the promise that he once showed. And you can probably think of a number of players in the Australian football context that are similar. I know one thing that's quite apparent with a lot of young forwards is that they get shifted out wide to accommodate maybe more credentialed visa players and end up being wide forwards by the time that they really make a mark in the senior side. I think back to guys like Bernie Abini, Mitch Duke.
Yeah, that seems to be a problem. That
very common.
It is.
Trend. Corey Gamero, another one.
Yeah, there's a severe lack of true strikers, isn't there, in Australian football? That's a problem we know all too well with the Socceroos in particular, but definitely in the A-League.
I mean, one player that was played in a sort of a bit of a auxiliary wide role when he was back in the Perth Glory was Jamie McLaren, and he only really emerged as a predatory marksman in his Brisbane Roar days. So it's one of those things where if you're a youngster that's quality in front of goal, prefer to centre forward position, it might actually do you good by, you know, playing for an NPL team rather than trying to break into an A-League side early on in your career. I mean, you look at even someone like Joey Caterbean wasn't going to stand much of a chance with a name like Bessard Brisha to contend with at Mel Victory. And then when I think he did get a bit more of an opportunity at Brisbane Roar, he had Jamie McLaren in that number 9 role. So it's one of those tough ones where a lot of teams do play the 4-3-3 or even other formations where one centre forward is generally played. I mean, it's not like the 90s where each team had a front pair that used to ram into goals, a striker and a second striker who could combine. You think back to, you know, the likes of Andy Cole and Dwight York from an international context, but also closer to back home, Bobby Despotovsky and Damien Murray at the Perth Glory. You haven't had such sort of partnerships in the A-League. The closest one, the best one I can really think of is that famous duo at Mel Victory in Arch Thompson and Danny Allsop.
Mm-hmm. Delayed offside flag shown by the linesman on the far side. Would I be right in saying that it probably is a good move for strikers really to sort of make a name for themselves in the NPL first as a striker and then not get, and then sort of almost, you know, it works out in their favour that they do get pigeonholed as a striker in the A-League to their benefit. Most strikers who have come up from the NPL into the A-League have stayed in that position.
Yeah, I think, although, you know, it's a bit hard with someone like Kane Shepherd, who I think is more of a second striker, can also play as a wide forward position, and I think he's been utilised in that role at the Newcastle Jets this campaign, given that they do have Donovan back from that lengthy suspension. I think when you look at someone like Kenny Few, when Muscat has preferred to play him, it's usually when Toivonen is injured or rested, and I think that playing the two up front together doesn't work simply because, Kenny isn't a guy that you can probably so easily shift wide. Neither is Toivonen. You definitely want him in the centre. So it's one of those things where if you are a out-and-out number 9, it's probably best to, as you alluded to, Jordan, make your mark in the NPL, because if you do make your mark in the sort of NYL, NPL youth team, and then try and contend for a position as your A-League team's number 9, you can ultimately get shifted into a wide forward, maybe even an attacking midfielder. I mean, think back to someone like Nick D'Agostino that scored a few weeks ago for the Oularoos, but can't seem to do the same in the A-League.
And then you see a teammate of his like Dylan Wenzel-Halls, who's come up through NPL Queensland, and fair enough, he has played as a second striker as well this season, but I mean,
since the departure of Adam Taggart, he's really...
Exactly, yeah. And even with Eli Babal coming in and starting, it is Wenzel-Halls who is up front with him.
And not just Eli Babal, you also have Charles...
Lockerlingoy.
Correct, from Sydney FC, who's a prime example of what we're talking about. Someone who's come in from an NYL youth team, scored goals for fun, and hasn't been able to replicate in the A-League, where he's deployed in a more, wide position.
Iancello's work on the byline there for Kingston City earns them a corner late on in this contest. Coming up to about 3 minutes to go in regulation. Corner sent in. Around to the back post, hooked away cleanly by the defence of Green Gully, and then Daniel Bennett's shot fired in. Couldn't quite replicate his magnificent effort from 2 years ago. He's a super boot when he does get it right.
Pretty much sums up Kingston City's night, that effort. I believe it was against the Port Melbourne Sharks, where he scored a goal this season contender in 2017. Of course, made the switch to the Grange Reserve alongside teammate Faisal Sakazada, having been pipped to promotion while being teammates of at Dandenong Thunder by Kingston City in that dramatic final day scenes in NPL 2 in 2016. Kingston City have been a good addition to the top flight since then, but it's definitely going to be an uphill struggle, I think, this year to survive if they can't turn the tables around quickly.
Tidmarsh cut the cross back into the 18-yard area, but dealt with by Green Gully. Into midfield now for Suleimani. Bennett's touch not clean, took him away from the ball. And now Kamara. He will lob it forward to the run of Salmon, but brought down by Jovanovic.
Just to update you on the score from NPL 2 tonight, where home side Bulleen Lions have emerged 1-0 victors at the Veneto Club against Box Hill United. George Savridis, the former Kingston City man, with a 21st minute goal, which proved to be the match winner.
Pardon my ignorance on NPL 2, but Bulleen, are they going well this season? I see they've gotten a couple of results.
Yeah, I mean, they had an extensive overhaul of the playing roster in the off-season, as most clubs do when they get relegated from the top flight. I think it's been one of those seasons where had a number of teams, particularly highly fancy teams, on that side of town, Langwarrin as well, that have had probably patchy starts but are getting into gear, finding some form. And I generally think that when it comes to the East, probably be between Langwarrin and Bulleen. Eastern Lions currently topping, as T-Boy Kamara talks himself into the book. Just an unnecessary yellow card. Your team is 4-0 up. I know you're looking to make an impact, but no real point.
Bennett through midfield. Green Gully just piling the numbers back, trying to conserve their clean sheet for tonight. Jonathan Boonis wriggles out of a tight spot and can't continue forward as he's impeded by Nathan Tidmarsh.
The positive to really take out for Green Gully out of tonight is that the 4-0 result moves them back into the top 6, and they actually go into 4th. So they leapfrog Altona into that position. And of course 4th at the end of round 26. And I know it may not mean much now, but it means you get a home final. So for a team that ensured their NPL survival in the wildest and unlikeliest of circumstances in that promotion relegation playoff against Moreland City, if someone had told the club hierarchy 9 rounds in, going into the first major break of the season, that you'd be in 4th place, just a win away from 2nd place, I think they would have taken it. Especially given that they also did overhaul the squad extensively over the course of the summer. A lot of new signings, particularly up forward, Salmon, Fletcher, Brennan, Kamara. Of course, the addition of Kalmar in midfield, Purcell, Jones returning to the team, and joined by Lampard and Tyson in goals. Almost a new squad, essentially, and they've certainly performed above expectation, in my opinion.
They've got a tricky little run coming up in the next 2 weeks. Melbourne Knights away at Knight Stadium next Friday. Another team in the top 6, and Hume City as well, who are thereabouts in round 11 before it becomes a slightly bit easier anyway with Dandenong Thunder and Oakley Cannons after that. So do you see their form sort of continuing on, especially next week against Knights, which will be a challenging game?
It will, particularly at Knight Stadium, which the Knights have looked to make a fortress this campaign. I know they had that defeat a week or so ago against South Melbourne, but they returned back to winning ways this week with that 3-1 come from behind victory against Pascoe Val. Of course, the game did turn on that 64th minute red card to Hakeem Al-Arabi, but you still got to get those 3 points once they win. Once they squared the contest at 1-1 through that Hamish Watson penalty, and goals to Till Offley and Gian Albano, who I think has been one of the best signings this campaign, particularly from Knight's standpoint. I think him and Hamish Watson have generally revitalised the attack at Summer Street. I think the whistle's about to go fairly shortly.
Yeah, Kingston City have Bentley Greens next week as well before they face the Knights the week after, so not going to get easier for Kingston as we come to this game's conclusion. And it's been all Green Gully tonight. Jonathan Barrero finishes round number 9. The ball kicked away in frustration by Kingston City. It has been a sort of night like that for them. Green Gully, they back up last week's win against Pascoe Vale. 4 goals then, 4 goals tonight, all without conceding. And tonight it comes at the Grange. So this keeps them right in the thick of it all, in the top 6 as we near the halfway mark of the season. It was goals from Jonathan Boonis in the first half, Matthew Fletcher as well. An own goal, which we believe will go down to Erhan Yalaz. It looked that way anyway, but it might well be Jonathan Boonis if it was on target. And then Adisu Bayou about an hour into this match with the fantastic run down the right sideline. So as we finish up this broadcast tonight, your final thoughts and maybe a man of the match as well. Give me a call, Ash.
Yeah, from a Kingston standpoint, not really much you can say about that one. One day I'd rather forget. Probably maintain my earlier conclusion that is the worst performance Kingston City have mustered up in the top flight since being promoted back in 2017. I think you can make excuses to say that the game turned on that second goal, contention second goal, but at the same time you can't collapse like that, and they certainly did. Overall disappointing night for them, but Green Gully dominant in victory. It's a result that will please Stephen Downs, going away from home and being so dominant, regardless of how your opponents played. I think plenty of positives to take out for them. I think Jonathan Boonis got the show rolling, and I think he's good value for man of the match. I think Jay Davies had a superb game in midfield, and overall they were my two best performers of the night. I know Adisu Bayou, also good to see the youngster get his maiden top flight goal, and I'm sure he'll relish that moment. Of course, got 58 minutes on the park, but from what he did get, he was quality.
A week off coming up this weekend with Easter, so we'll be back with NPL action streaming on Facebook and YouTube on Anzac Day with Altona Magic taking on Port Melbourne. That'll be at 5 p.m. Melbourne Knights and Green Gully then following that, and then a whole host of games in the days to come. Damir Kulash, thank you very much tonight.
No worries, pleasure to call the game with you, Jordan, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Thank you, and likewise as well. So 4-0 tonight for Green Gully away at the Grange. They continue on, and they're in the top four quite comfortably now with a pretty healthy goal difference, I'm sure, after tonight. Kingston City still in the relegation zone. Coming up to the halfway point in the season, keep on Facebook and on YouTube for all of the streaming action. NPL Victoria returning in 2 weekends from now. Good night from myself and the team at NPL Victoria.